Hey, how's it going? Session 3. Are you ready? Okay, so last time we were talking about a number of different things. Talked about thinking inside, outside the box. We're dichotomous thinkers, and I'm going to go into that a little bit more. Um, Looking at the conformist, nonconformist balance that societies all come to. We talked about terrain theory versus germ theory as it um, basically is a way of talking about paradigms because really we run programs that are grouped together in a coherent grouping called a paradigm where there's a grouping of beliefs and values and precepts that we accept as valid and knowledge base that we accept as truthful. And we talked a bit about application of different paradigms that I personally have engaged in. So I've been looking through the stuff I've written and talking about patterns. Why are we thinking in dichotomies? Has that ever occurred to you that we think it's it's basically digital? It's either on or off. It's this or that. But reality doesn't operate like that, right? It's everything's on a spectrum, including people's behaviors, their beliefs, everything is on a spectrum. And yet we accept that things are one way or the other. How does that help us to understand? Well, I think that personally, the dichotomous thinking stems from our um, reptilian brain that requires immediate action, fight or flight, right? Safety or danger, those kinds of things. Because if we can't tell if our environment is safe or dangerous, we're in for an interesting ride. That doesn't tend to serve well when you're dealing with social dynamics that are fluid or political dynamics that are fluid, which is a form of social dynamics. How we organize, how we live together. That's basically politics, is what happens until the guns and knives come out, which is really not the best way to run a society because then you end up with social breakdown and chaos ensues. And we're seeing that happen in our society currently. If you look around the streets, you'll see that there are hundreds and hundreds of homeless encampments across our country of people living in very marginal conditions for both warmth and sanitation and nutrition and water and all that stuff, right? Like it's not an ideal situation when you have that social breakdown. So you're either homeless or you're not. That's pretty distinctive kind of dichotomy. Okay, so what causes us to think that way? It has a profound impact on how we interact with our world. Now, what's the opposite of dichotomous thinking? Well, it's multipolar thinking or intuitive thinking because there aren't just two things to consider. I mean, sometimes there are, but generally we have a whole range of options or things to consider. You wonder why people commit suicide, and you think, well, why did they do that? That doesn't make any sense. Well, what happens is people end up thinking in a circle where they have two options. I can't keep going the way I am, and none of the other options are acceptable to me because I'm not willing to entertain them. And so the other only option I have is I'm going to leave this place and I'm going to kill myself. Generally, when they stop people from committing suicide, the future self would thank the past self for not doing it because usually what happens when people get that kind of desperation is they're in the basal brain in fear, thinking one thing or another. Am I going to live or am I going to die? Really, that's not conducive to long-term survival for anyone. Although there are a lot of people live in fight or flight all the time in this world, and it causes this state of heightened anxiety. And you can see it in people's eyes when you're talking to them and their behaviors. They tend to be um, erratic and not very logical in the things they say, because if they gave it a thought, they go, that doesn't make any sense. Why am I saying that? Who told me that? And why do I believe it? Okay, so multipolar thinking is looking at a variety of different ways of perceiving your world. Multipolar, right? And each of them is a different paradigm. And so you can switch in and out of different paradigms depending on what situation you're in. Like if you're a prison guard, you're not going to use the same paradigm of interaction as you would if you're an art teacher trying to teach people, or a Reiki practitioner, right? You're going to behave very differently in those different circumstances. So you have to be able to choose the paradigm that fits the occasion, because we don't just have one paradigm we use. There's one basic overall guiding paradigm under which we function, where everybody in the society, or for the most part, conforms to the paradigm. And as we talked about last time, there's good and bad things about both ways of looking at it, because, of course, if there's no agreement, then you're going to have chaos. If there's total agreement, there's no room for innovation. So you end up with a stultified society. So it's social dynamics requires a balance of constraint and freedom. Now, if you look at the way things have gone in the last, say, 5 years, we went through a period where conformity and lockdowns and lack of options was it was very, very powerful social force for conformity to that. So that really is not conducive to innovation, because innovation requires being able to have multipolar thinking, which gets shut down as soon as you bring fear into the thing, because fear is a very base emotion. It's like the base of your brain, literally, fight or flight. Am I going to live? Am I going to die? I mean, that's pretty fundamental to everybody's survival. However, we don't live in a society where survival on that level is really generally something that people have to worry about. They're more worried about, do I have enough money to meet my needs, meet my obligations, and do I have anything left over that I can actually enjoy my life with recreation, travel, treats, extra things that, buying things that you perhaps want, hobbies, sports, that kind of thing. So how does that work? Well, a paradigm requires certain precepts to be accepted in order to function within it. Um, Intuition is a thing that happens when we have preloaded our brain with information, beliefs, values, and accepted general truths. And all that's in our background knowledge. It's we don't know where it is. It could be stored anywhere in your body for all we know, because there are neurons everywhere. And perhaps there are theories that say that that's a true thing, because apparently your gut responds, the neurons in your gut fire more quickly to new stimulus than your brain neurons. So, gut feelings are literally part of your safety network, because you have to be able to react instantly to dangerous situations for personal survival.